I've had a lot of criticisms about Season of Discovery, and I've been kind of thinking the whole time that it wouldn't really be a long term thing, but I'm changing my mind just a little bit now. And one of the reasons is kind of weird. It's that the new warrior runes are actually really lackluster, which is sensible. They really can't be that good. I mean, it'd be nice if they were strong for PvP in a way that wouldn't mess up PvE, but it's way better than, for example, in Phase 1 when we saw Consumed by Rage, and that made me think that these guys are not thinking of the longevity of the game at all. Now it seems like maybe they have a little bit more strategy, even if it doesn't have excellent strategy to it. I do think that they're really thinking a little bit. And also, we see them putting work in on changing a lot of items, which, rather you think the changes are good or not, it does show that they are committed to actually having some kind of long-term vision for this iteration of WoW, in my opinion, because although the changes would be very easy for them to push out if they're like a private server, I'm sure since it's a gajillion-dollar corporate enterprise, them doing literally any changes costs an insane amount of man hours due to meetings, little tech hurdles, making sure that they don't ever release a bug, any of that kind of stuff. So most likely there are tens of thousands of man hours being put into Season of Discovery, which does make me think that the corporate overlords high up in Blizzard actually think there's a little bit of a financial reason for them to do this, beyond just, I don't know, getting people to come back who quit a while ago, and then get them to jump to Plunderstorm, and then hopefully have them be tempted by retail, which was kind of the line I've been going with for a while, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And if I was wrong about that, that would be a good thing, because we'd all love to see Blizzard win and create products and services that we want to buy, obviously. So what do I think Warriors in particular may look like in Sunken Temple? This is going to be speculation, of course, but my assumptions are kind of that they're going to be better than they were in Phase 2. I kind of wonder if they're going to utilize armor or mechanics as a way to make it so that way they don't just take off, because obviously as they keep on adding more gear into the game and they give everybody a similar amount of stats, you got to imagine Warriors aren't unique in the gear that they utilize. So if they're going to make rep pallies and rogues, and to a lesser extent hunters and enhanced shamans have better gear, it means that we're going to have better gear too. But better gear on us means a lot more than on the other classes, which does have me wondering how they're going to maintain some semblance of balance. Maybe they actually just give up on having warriors not be super dominant as melee DPS. Maybe they add a lot of melee hate or something, so that way you don't turn raids into all warriors. At this point, if they made warriors just the absolute dominant class for PvE DPS, that'd probably be a problem, because it would end up making a lot of people feel like they wasted their time playing other classes, and that's not right, even though warriors might feel like they wasted time since they don't really get to participate in PvP like many of the other classes. Although hopefully they find a way to fix that. I'm not going to bet on PvP getting better for us, though, because even in classic WoW, level 60, like, era stuff, in my opinion, warriors aren't all that great at PvP. It's just that warriors will get full bis and then go do PvP against classes that are great in PvP, like a mage, whereas a mage will be like, I hit level 60, I'm in greens and blues, and go jump into a battleground. And then your full bissed out warrior maybe one-shots them, and you're like, game's balanced. And it's like, nah, you just have like 3 times the gear of the people you're playing against. However, the illusion of balance is just as good as balance in a lot of times, so I don't mind that personally too much. That's just fine, that's in the game. So if you want to be a DPS warrior, I think that you're not super likely to feel like you wasted your time getting to level 50 on the character. It's also great to see that they made leveling easier, because so many people like to claim that leveling is an awesome part of the classic WoW experience, and Personally, I think it's a terrible part of it. I think it's absolutely awful. I think it could be really cool if you could level faster, and especially if you could level in ways that get people to actually make friends and play with each other. Like if there was, I shouldn't really try to speculate on ways that they could try to make a group leveling more fun, but just making leveling shorter is an easy way to make the experience better. It makes it more fresh. You got to imagine that you'll spend more time going between zones, doing things that are guaranteed to be not super frustrating and getting rewarding experiences, as opposed to the common problem with leveling in Classic WoW, where you literally run yourself out of quests, or trying to get in a dungeon group is super painful and the rewards aren't even that great. I think they're doing a lot to fix that by making it so they're going to rebalance which dungeons you're going to be doing at and near level 50, and also just really the 50% XP boost. That is such a fantastic idea. I'm so happy they put that in the game. I think they should put it into Classic Era too, honestly. I think Classic Era would get a big spike in gameplay if they just made leveling not suck so much, because really, that's the big issue with giving WoW a chance. I imagine anybody watching this video, you're already sold on the lore, the suspension of disbelief you need to be able to enjoy the game and feel like you're actually in the universe, you know? And so anything they can do to get you to the best parts of the game as quickly as possible, in my opinion, is really the way they should do it. But of course, I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who wants to get to max level and play with people and do endgame content the exact same way over and over and over again and get 1% better each time, which I think it's the best way to play, of course. But not everybody agrees with that. However, I do think that probably the majority of the gameplay hours logged in the game are by people with that perspective, because freaks like us spend a lot more time online than players who, you know, they want to get to max level and be in pugs and scuffed raids that are maybe 2 or 3 hours when they could be an hour, and then they want to log off for a week. Those players don't spend a whole lot of time in game, in my opinion. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. I just really would doubt it. So I'm kind of excited about this next phase of Season of Discovery, even though I really, really hated Phase 2. I felt like it was terrible, especially at the start. It seemed a little better near the end, but, you know, for the average Warriors gameplay experience, unless your group's been trying to learn how to, like, really dial stuff in and get better and better week after week, I imagine that most likely your experience rating in Nomer has been that you never really got to do all that great of damage, except maybe on, like, literally Grubbus and, yeah, no, honestly, like, just Grubbus, that's probably how it is for most people, even though there's other bosses that have cleave opportunities and low armor. It's just the way it is. But with Sunken Temple just juicing stats across the board for everybody, as long as they don't give runes that super enhance the abilities of other classes, I imagine that the gap for average warriors and average other classes is going to get closed a lot more. Although I am really wondering if, like, top guys that are in the logs for warriors, are they just going to rock it off compared to everybody else? I mean, I wouldn't mind it, although I don't know if that's really the intent of the game designers to have that happen. I don't think that everybody needs to, for example, do the same damage for the game to be balanced. I think really what balance is about is that everybody feels like they have a real purpose in raid. And also, if the balance of the game encourages people to integrate a distribution of classes into their raid groups such that the average player has a fairly easy time getting a raid group. And I think Classic WoW did that really well. People be like, hey, it wasn't cool that 60% of the players or 50% of the players were warriors. But it's like, no, it's fine, because everybody was able to get into raids pretty easily, except Hunters, honestly. Hunters had a really hard time in later content getting into raid groups, in my opinion. But just about everybody else had a really easy time. If you played Classic Era at all, I'm sure you'd feel this. And if you played in 2019, almost for sure you would have. Just remember all of the MC or BWL pugs you ever went to where there'd be like, I don't know, 10 mages, or there'd be like 6 warlocks, even though they're way less valuable to the comp than warriors. The content was, you know, it was easy. And a lot of times a raid leader would just rather get a mage in that's going to, you know, potentially do half as much damage as a warrior, but they can just get him in and get rolling, you know? And especially if the raid leader was like a warrior themselves, they might be like, hey, you know, I'll give up the loot competition. Why do I want to take somebody else? So stuff like that, you know, it plays in together to make the game work. And in Season of Discovery, There's been a lot of issues of people trying to get into raid groups. I don't think that it's a huge issue because anybody as any class can get into a raid group of just about any level if they'll put in the work for it. But it would be nice if a more casual player could still get into raids pretty easily. I'd really like to see Sunken Temple be a fairly easy raid. I think that'd be really cool. Make it fairly easy for people to complete. Make it easier than Nomergon. Maybe if it's a pretty long raid, then the meta will shift and people will be able to be more passionate about player-created challenges. I think parsing and speedrunning is way better than having progression be the challenge. I don't think modern gamers really want progression to be the challenge for them. I think you could kind of see this in retail where most players aren't in progression raiding guilds. They're not trying to push these bosses that are super hard in Mythic. Not to say that that's lame and it shouldn't exist. No, I think it's super cool, and those players are cracked. They're like way better than us, for sure. But people don't want to feel like they're missing out. So it's nice if everybody can get the gear. And if everybody can get the gear, the way that that plays out is taking pugs and losing gear to them stings less. There's all sorts of ways in where being exclusive and encouraging a meta that only rewards the best players will actually hurt the best players because you're going to have to pug sometimes. And if it's hard for people to get into runs and you want similar gear to them, then they're going to be rolling on all of your shit. And that's going to upset both of you. And I'm not saying that Blizzard should just make more loot drop. I do think a little exclusivity in loot is important. And by that, I mean, don't literally hand it out. But I also really, really hate when people want to gatekeep getting stats on their character or getting into raid groups. And I don't mean as in individuals. I hate when people want Blizzard to increase the ways to incentivize individuals discriminating based on class or parses or whatever. It's way better for everyone if Blizzard kind of backs away from trying to actually define a meta, and if things like speedrunning and parsing do. And other factors, like there is a meta to putting a pug raid together. If you think that the optimal way to put a pug raid together is to try to look at the best performing raid groups in the world and try to copy the teams that they're using, good luck. It's going to make it really, really hard to assemble a team. What you'll see will happen is you'll be like, oh, I really need this class that's highly sought after. And maybe you'll get somebody, but then someone else in your group leaves because it's taking so long to get it put together. That stuff sucks. So it's nice when raid leaders don't have to be stressed out about the idea of completing a raid. It's so stressful to worry about that. You feel like it's going to hurt your reputation. You're going to waste other people's time. These are legitimate fears that people putting groups together have. And then there's also the more selfish fears. Granted, all the fears are selfish because it's just you worrying about how you're going to feel about yourself. But it's just so easy to resolve. Make the stuff easy. Classic WoW was great when it was easy. The most fun phases were the easy content, MC and BWL. AQ40, hey, if they made Twin Imps less of a pain in the ass, I bet you that AQ40 would be a lot of people's favorite raid too. And I mean, I think people like Nax, for example, but if you go look at the statistics for how many people actually experienced it compared to the other raids in 2019 and 2020 or even like Era right now, Nax just isn't as good of a raid for the game, in my opinion, as MC and BWL were. I want to see easy content. I want people to create challenges themselves. I assure you, if they made Sunken Temple super easy, the best groups would wipe because what would they do? They would just push really hard, like honestly, everyone I know who runs a really good speedrunning guild or even a parsing guild, a feature of those groups is that they absolutely do hilarious shit and wipe their raids sometimes because they're just making sure they're right on the edge of what they're pretty sure they can handle. And that just means you're going to wipe. You're going to wipe. You're going to miss a mechanic up. You're going to have somebody engage the boss that you're expecting a 14-second kill on. They're going to hit it 1 second before everybody else, and no one's going to parse. There's all of these problems that still come to surface and will eradicate your performance, even if the game's super easy. So I just don't want to see Blizzard trying to make it hard. Make it easy. The best players, they'll make it hard all on their own. They will find hilarious ways to make it hard all on its own. Like, just imagine how there are people on private servers who did like 16-minute and 15-minute BWLs, or no, sorry, not BWLs, MCs. Yeah, there are so many ways you can screw that up. Like, here's one. Hunter wants to go pull Baron Geddon, and there's a very fancy pull they can use so they can pull him before some of the trash. You screw that up, hey, high chance everyone's dead, because if you screw it up and he does the raid-wide threat pulse, which all bosses have, where they'll put everybody in the whole instance into threat after a few seconds, GG, he's going to run through some trash packs, and you're just going to wipe, or you're going to at least lose your speed run off it. You don't need to make the game hard for the best players to challenge themselves. You really don't. It just needs to be hard enough that not everybody can get literally all the same items regardless of their time commitment. But, man, it's not a big deal if people get free items, even in my opinion. Who cares? I just want to push myself when I'm playing. I don't give a fuck if other people got the same items as me.